supposed to make sure that we're tailoring immigration policies that make sure that we're not, an open door for anyone to just walk in, that the people who are here to visit our country safely or to come here to bring jobs or to support our economy are coming in. But I think we have to do immigration smartly, and that's what he's looking at.
And then, I had a second one.
I'm sorry, you're right.
I haven't heard that you have said or someone else has said specifically, has the president spoken to any of the intelligence agencies about the investigation into the Russian connections, and will he allow that to go on?
I don't believe he has spoken to anyone specifically about that, and I don't know that he has not made any indication that he would stop an investigation of any sort. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Sean. Clarification. You said you're willing to work with anybody to defeat the Islamic State group. Does that include Bashar al-Assad?
Well, I think what we're doing, we are going to smartly do this. I mean, let's be clear. Part of it is to make sure that they have America's interest in what they're doing and who they are. So we're not going to get together with people under the guise of defeating ISIS if that's not truly their guise, or if they're not. So let's not take that too far. Thank you. Yeah.
Sean, will the president release documents showing that he has left his businesses?
I believe we have. Oh, is he?
They're not public at this time.
But yeah, he has resigned from the company, as he said he would before he took office. Don and Eric are fully in charge of the company. He's taken extraordinary steps to ensure that that's happened. Yeah.
The president is taking actions these first days aligning to the political priorities. What would be the message for the Hispanic community in the U.S.? Take it into consideration that one of the priorities has been the war. What would be the relation between this administration and the Hispanic community in the U.S.?
Well, I think his relationship with the Hispanic community is going to be great. I think as I said, I think that whether it's jobs or education or health care, the president's committed to uniting all Americans and working towards a better, safer, more secure, more prosperous America that benefits everybody. And I think, regardless of your background, that's something that he's committed to. Yeah.
Sean, Financial Times. Does Mr. Trump agree with Rex Tillerson that the U.S. should try and prevent China from accessing the islands in the South China Sea where it's building runways and other kinds of facilities?
I think areas in the South China Sea that are part of international waters and international activities, I think the U.S. is going to make sure that we protect our interests there. So it's a question of if those islands are in fact in international waters and not part of China proper, then yeah, we're going to make sure that we defend international territories from being taken over by one country. Does that answer?
Would you prevent China from actually reaching?
I'm not going to look. I think I answered the question. I think as we develop further, we'll have more information on that. John Gizzi.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.
Hold on.
Sean.
I'll get to you. I promise.
Yeah. And welcome to your first day on the job.
Thank you.
Very simply, there was an earlier question about Jerusalem and putting the U.S. Embassy there. And a lot of talk about executive orders. Is this something the president can accomplish by executive order?
It is, but I think, as I noted, John, it's very early in this process. We're at the beginning stages of this decision-making process, and his team's going to continue to consult with stakeholders as we get there. Yes, ma'am.
Peña with La Opinion, and thank you, Sean,
and welcome
here.
Thank you.
So I have a follow-up on the housekeeping question about NAFTA. Are we not to expect then an executive order today to renegotiate NAFTA, or will he wait till he meets with President Peña Nieto next week? And on the other question I had is, he didn't mention Latin America at all in his in his inauguration speech. Does he plan to visit Latin America this year?
So on the first part, I think we'll have further announcements on trade throughout the week. I think we're done with executive orders for the day. But as I always say, stand by. But we do not have any intention to have additional executive orders today. But I believe there could be some additional ones throughout the week on trade, and we'll have further updates for you on there. And then the second part.
He plans to travel to Latin America, given that he left them out on his inauguration speech.
Well, I don't think I didn't think he left them out. I think he was focused on this country, our American workers. I don't think he got into detail on any countries that I'm aware of or that I can recall. But I also think that we're here on the first working day. We're announcing Theresa May coming this Friday. We're excited to have the Prime Minister here. As I said, we've already talked about setting up a meeting with Canada and Mexico. He's talked to Prime Minister Netanyahu about having him come over, and then, as I mentioned, President al-Sisi. So we'll get there. We've got a lot of calls to return. There's a lot of excitement throughout the world, and a lot of people who are really excited both to come here and to have the president visit them. Yes, sir.
Sir, last week on LGBT rights, the Log Cabin Republicans, a gay Republican group, delivered a white paper to the Trump team urging the president to maintain an executive order from President Obama barring anti-LGBT workplace discrimination among federal contractors. The president has said he's going to rescind the executive orders from President Obama that are unconstitutional, but will he maintain this executive order barring anti-LGBT
Yeah,
discrimination?
I don't know on that one. I'll have to get back to you on that one. I don't know that we've gotten that far in the list of executive orders, but I'd be glad to get back to you.
President, will we send them?
What's that? It's not. I just don't know the answer. I'll try to get back to you on that one. Yes, sir.
Sean, thanks. Two quick things. On immigration, the Chief of Staff, I think, had said over the weekend, seemed to suggest that an executive order shutting down the DACA program had been ruled out. Is that officially ruled out as you guys go forward? Yeah. And does the President support action in Congress that would essentially permanently establish those protections?
Yeah, I think I don't have anything further on the executive action front, but what I think I've asked and answered the DACA piece of this in terms of his priorities right now.
Legislation.
I think that we'll have to. We don't have anything in front of us right now to sign on that. So give us a little bit of time. We'll see what Congress moves forward with, and then I'm sure we'll have a further readout on both the executive order piece and on the legislation. Yes, sir.
What's the status of the refugee resettlement program?
I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that one right now. Or I think the best thing to do would probably contact the Department of State. Yes, sir, in the back.
Regarding access for American companies to international markets, will the president try to improve the access to the largest market in the world, the European one, by taking up TTIP negotiations or by any other means?
Well, look, I think he's going to increase market access wherever he can. He's in the process of reviewing all of our current trade agreements and looking at potential bilateral options going forward. Whether it's in the EU or in the Asia Pacific arena or in the Middle East, he's going to figure out where we can expand U.S. market access, and that's, I think, what today's decision really starts to show, is that it's not about multilateral agreements under a Trump administration. It's about bilateral agreements where we can figure out country to country how can we fight for the American worker, gain them access to another market that's going to benefit our large and small businesses who want to sell additional goods and services. Yes?
Sky News. Why did the President choose the British Prime Minister as the first foreign leader for him to meet? And can we take from that he intends to make the relationship even closer?
I think we've always had that special relationship with Britain, and he's going to, and that reflects in his first visit, in the Prime Minister's first visit here. He's had a great conversation with her, and he looks forward to having her here, but we can always be closer. Yes, ma'am.
Jane with Signing News, what kind of relationship is Trump looking for to build with China after he withdrew from TPP? And on Taiwan's issue, what kind of stance he's going to make on cross-strait relations?
What's the last part, please?
Taiwan,
yeah.
Cross-strait relation.
Well, I think on China, he understands what a big market that is for U.S. goods and services. When he met with the head of Alibaba a couple weeks ago, that was part of the point. There's a huge market issue there, but in many cases, it's not a two-way street. There's so many Chinese businesses and individuals, frankly, who can have ease of access in the United States to sell their goods or services. And I think that whether or not you're talking about the financial services or the banking, the other service industries or our manufacturing goods and services, or some of the IP problems that we have with China, that it really is not a two-way street. And so he understands the market that China has, and our desire to further penetrate that market. But he also recognizes there's a lot of concerns with how we are treated entering into China's market, and we need to review that. Yes, ma'am. I think we'll have further updates on that. Yes, ma'am.
Jessica Stone from CGTN. Welcome.
Thank you.
Question following on what she was asking about TPP. Part of the thinking of TPP was to encircle China economically, and I wonder if the president has thought a little bit about what kind of bilateral relationships in the region, the trade relationships, would accomplish a similar goal. And secondly, I heard you talking about NAFTA and a trigger, but I didn't hear you say you had triggered the trigger.
We have not triggered the trigger. Hasn't happened. But again, I think we have existing relationships with many of the countries that were part of the 12-nation makeup of TPP, and I think we're going to continue to explore how we can, in some cases, strengthen those relationships or look for bilateral agreements with nations that we didn't have one through TPP. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Sean, congratulations,
Thank
Bob
you.
Weiner, op-ed writer and Main Street Radio Network. Social Security and infrastructure. On Social Security, the President will be meeting tonight with congressional leaders. What's he going to do, given his campaign promise on not touching Social Security, when Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell send him a bill that includes in a funding package various cuts in Social Security? And on infrastructure, has it fallen off the radar screen, or is it going to stay a priority for the President?
So on Social Security, he's going to talk to them. I think he's been very clear what his priority is in terms of preserving and protecting this really important benefit to our seniors. He understands. I mean, Mr. Trump's employed so many people over the years. He understands the struggle that people have later in life to continue to make ends meet. And I think that he is keenly aware of how important this program is to so many people in their later years. And so he's going to continue to fight to make sure that that's a program that is preserved and protected. And then on the infrastructure, of course, yes, that definitely, I mean, he's continued to bring that up. He talked with the business executives today about how so many of our airports that are so important to our commerce system, getting planes to land in and out, roads and their ability to truck things across the country, even our freight system, that if our infrastructure is not strong, it inhibits our ability to have free commerce. It drives up the cost of goods and services when someone's got to take a different route or is limited in the opportunities that they have because a runway might be closed or it can't be expanded or a rail line breaks down or a highway's just not the wear and tear he puts on trucks or shut down. So infrastructure continues to be a huge priority for him. Yes, sir.
Yeah, two questions. The National Security Council, the staffing of the National Security Council, when do you expect to have those positions filled?
We've got many of them filled.
Many of them are.
I'd have to get back to you on the number, but it's actually fairly robust right now. There were a lot of holdovers, but General Flynn has been working diligently with KT McFarland, his deputy, and others to make sure that that's filled out and ready to go. He's had countless meetings with counterparts and had several folks detailed over, but it's a very, very robust effort from day one.
And to follow up to John Carl's question, so are you retracting your claim on Saturday that it was the largest crowd in person?
That's not what I said.
Well, you said that this was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
Right. To witness and around the globe. Yes. The total audience it was.
Total audience, but not simply in person.
But that, right. But again, I didn't say in person, both in person and around the globe to witness it.
You're saying those together.
No, that's actually what I said. It's not what I don't know how you can interpret it differently. That's literally what I said. To witness it in person and around the globe. Total audience, yes.
But not in person.
Hold on.
But you're saying here, just to clarify, you're not saying, and you weren't saying on Saturday, that it was the largest inaugural crowd in person.
I am not. I am saying that it was the total largest audience witnessed in person and around the globe. Yes, sir.
Just to go back to one other thing you said.
Yes.
Sources are telling CBS News, those with knowledge of who was in the room in the lobby of the CIA, that senior leadership were not among those hooting and hollering, and that there were some 40 people who were in the first front rows who were brought in by Trump and Pence and Pompeo. I'd like to give you a chance to respond to that reporting.
I don't think that's accurate at all. In fact, I think if you listen to the audio of it, you can hear the excitement that exists there. There were some people that had to be off camera for obvious reasons, but I think when you looked at the number of people that were there, the audio alone speaks volumes to what had happened. I don't think that there's any question about that.
So the people in the front who were seen on camera, those were CIA employees?
I honestly, I don't have a seating chart. I think we had a very small footprint going over there. I don't know exactly who went over, but I don't know, maybe 10 people at most. Sarah, was it 10? We're in the travel going over, so 10 of 400.
But
plus.
the people who were in the front rows, those were CIA employees.
Some.
So some were not.
I'm sure we seated. I can't say. I'm not really sure why this matters. I mean, 10 people didn't yell that loud.
But you did say that they were hooting and hollering.
Yeah, they were.
There's not this rift between the intelligence community and the president.
because senior authorities within the intelligence community are telling CBS News that they're uncomfortable with that portrayal, and the notion that people within the CIA are applauding.
All I can do is tell you to listen to the tape alone. I think you can hear a lot of that. Yes?
Sean, a couple questions if I could. I know you've been out here for a while. Has the president formally requested or received Pentagon advice on how he could change the campaign against the Islamic State?
I think he has ordered it. He's going to, as I mentioned, he'll be at the Department of Defense on Friday to swear in General Mattis as the next secretary. Well, to go through the ceremony of that. He is obviously the Secretary of Defense, and so. At that time, he will continue to have conversations about what he wants from them and the Joint Chiefs. Jim.
Yeah, just to follow up.
Yes.
I don't mean to beat a dead horse on the issue of the U.S. Embassy in Israel.
Right.
Can you, at the end of the president's first 4 years, assuming at the end of the next 4 years, will the United States Embassy be in Jerusalem?
Well, I think I've answered it twice now. We are at the early stages in this decision-making process.
Not whether, it's when and how.
There's a reason you go through a decision-making process, and that's what we're in the process of starting right now. So I just don't want to get ahead of it. If it was already a decision, then we wouldn't be going through a process. Okay, I just answered the question. Thanks, Julie. Jim?
First of all, congratulations, and thanks for taking the question. Getting back to Saturday at the CIA and your statement here at the podium, why make this crowd-size issue something to talk about at all, and why get into it? Did it bother the president that much that he felt that you needed to come out here and straighten that out for us? And why did he choose the CIA as the venue to talk about that?
So two things. One, I just got handed a note. All of the people were not, no one in the front row was Trump. They were all CIA.
Front row.
That's what you asked.
First 3 rows.
Okay. I'll find out who the other 2 were. I'm sorry, I just got you the front row. Give me a second. I'll get the second and the third. We're going to get to the 4th and 5th? Or? Okay, so let me see what I can do. Look, I think one of the things that happened, Jim, was that he kept hearing about this rift that existed. He talked about it a couple weeks ago after his briefing, how proud he is and how much he respects the intelligence community. And I think when he walked into that and he saw it, he wanted to make sure that people knew that what you're hearing on television or in reports about this rift, I have the utmost respect for you. I honor your service. I'm proud of what you're doing and the sacrifices that you're making. And I think that he wanted them to know that you see and hear all this stuff on TV about this rift that so-called exists, and clearly it doesn't matter. Like, don't believe what you're hearing. Know that I have a tremendous amount of respect for you. I appreciate everything that you're doing, and I think that's why you wanted to do it, is to make sure that they understand, they heard firsthand how much he respects them, how much he wanted to dispel the myth that there was a quote-unquote rift.
But in terms of the crowd size issue, why bring that up at the CIA? And why did you come out Saturday afternoon to talk about that? Did he tell you, Sean, I'm upset about this, I want you to come out?
No, I'm not going to get into conversations that I have with the president, but I will tell you that it's not just about a crowd size. It's about this constant, he's not going to run. Then if he runs, he's going to drop out. Then if he runs, he can't win. There's no way he can win Pennsylvania. There's no way he can win Michigan. Then if he won, it's, he didn't. There is this constant theme to undercut the enormous support that he has. And I think it's just unbelievably frustrating when you're continually told it's not big enough, it's not good enough, you can't win. And hold on, let me just, because I think it's important. He's gone out there and defied the odds over and over and over again. And he keeps getting told what he can't do by this narrative that's out there, and he exceeds it every single time. And I think there's an overall frustration when you turn on the television over and over again and get told that there's this narrative that you didn't win, you weren't going to run, you can't pick up this state. That's not, that's a fool's errand to go to Pennsylvania. Why is he in Michigan? How silly. They'll never vote for him. A Republican hasn't won that state since '88. And then he goes and he does it. And then what's the next narrative? Well, it must have been because of this. He didn't win that. And then, people aren't attending your thing. Or John Lewis is the first person to skip his inauguration. Not true. And over again, the MLK bust. I think over and over again, there's this constant attempt to undermine his credibility and the movement that he represents. And it's frustrating for not just him, but I think so many of us that are trying to work to get this message out. And so I mentioned this to Jonathan, but part of this is a two-way street. Like, we want to we want to have a healthy dialogue, not just with you, but with the American people. Because he's fighting for jobs, he's fighting to make this country safer. But when you're constantly getting told that can't be true, we doubt that you can do this won't happen, and that's the narrative when you turn on television every single day, it's a little frustrating. And I think that for those people around him, his senior team especially, but so many of the other folks that are either here in the administration, that gave up their time during the transition, they left a job to work for 3 or 4 weeks because they're so committed to having his nominees get through, it's a little demoralizing to turn on the TV day after day and hear, can't do this guy's not going to get confirmed, no way they're going to go through.
But isn't that just part of the conversation that happens in Washington?
No, it's not. I think
comes with being president of the United States and
no,
working at the White
no.
House.
Look, I've been doing this a long time. You've been doing this too. I've never seen it like this, Jim. I've never. And again, I'm not looking to go back and forth, but you're asking for an explanation. And I think that it's important to understand that whether it's the president himself, the vice president, the senior team, the volunteers, or the people who are out there just, in America that voted for him or walked the streets or put up a sign, that to constantly told no, 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 and to watch him go yes, yes, yes every time, and to come up to the next hurdle and see someone put a block up, gets a little frustrating. And I think that we are, and so you see this historic thing, and he stands there at the Capitol, and I was not that close, but on the platform, and you look out, and it's an amazing view, and it's just so many people who got in long lines, who had to go around all this different stuff to get in, and that was for the first time that we did have to go through fencing, that far out, and then to hear, well, look at this shot, and it wasn't that big. It's a little demoralizing because when you're sitting there and you're looking out and you're in awe of just how awesome that view is and how many people are there, and you go back and you turn on the television and you see shots of comparing this and that. I mean, and then you look at the stuff that's happening, the nominees that get put out, the Democrats stopping. There are 2 cabinet officials, ladies and gentlemen, that are taking their office today. He visited the CIA, and a director that was considered a consensus candidate wasn't approved. Where's the story? And I think that
Is there a fair criticism that you've got bigger fish to fry? Like, why worry about a couple of tweets about crowd sizes?
Because it's not. Because that's what I'm saying. You're minimizing the point here, Jim. It's not about one tweet. It's not about one picture. It's about a constant theme. It's about sitting here every time and being told, no. Well, we don't think he can do that. He'll never accomplish that. He can't win that. It won't be the biggest. It's not going to be that good. The crowds aren't that big. He's not that successful. The narrative and the default narrative is always negative. And it's demoralizing. And I think that when you sit here and you realize the sacrifice the guy made of leaving a very, very successful business because he really cares about this country. And he wants to, despite your partisan differences, he cares about making this country better for everybody. He wants to make it safer for everybody. And so when you wake up every day, and that's what you're seeing over and over again, and you're not seeing stories about the cabinet folks that he's putting or the success that he's having trying to keep American jobs here, yeah, it is a little disappointing. So it's,
not always going to be positive. Sometimes
it's not. And sometimes we'll make mistakes. I promise you that. But it's not always got to be negative, Jim. Some days we do the right thing. Some days we are successful. So it's part of this is saying when we're right, say we're right. When we're wrong, say we're wrong. But it's not always wrong and negative. There's a lot of things that he's done already. A lot of amazing people he's appointed, a lot of success that he's having. And it would be once in a while for someone just to say, report it straight up. He appointed this person. Here's their background. Not why they're not going to get nominated. Not why it's not going to happen. So, hold on. One last thing. Hold on. I can't. I know we're getting really into facts. So just to be clear, there were no Trump or White House folks sitting down. They were all in the CIA to address. So not in rows 1 through anything from what I'm told. Hold on. I appreciate Julie's effort, but I want to hear. I've got Hallie. John, you got one.
So Sean,
give me a second.
A couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. First one on Russia. The administration was asked about multiple interactions between National Security Advisor Mike Flynn and a Russian ambassador. I believe you at the time, the administration at the time, said the calls were related to setting up a discussion between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. Were those conversations about anything else other than setting up that discussion, and why has that discussion not yet happened between the President and President Putin?
So there's been one call. I talked to General Flynn about this again last night. One call talks about 4 subjects. One was the loss of life that occurred in the plane crash that took their military choir. 2 was Christmas and holiday greetings. 3 was to facilitate or to talk about a conference in Syria on ISIS, and 4 was to set up to talk about, after the inauguration, setting up a call between President Putin and President Trump. That I don't believe that has been set up yet, because the call was to say, after they did follow up, 2 days ago, about how to facilitate that call once again. So there have been a total of 2 calls with the ambassador and General Flynn. And the second call came, I think it's now 3 days ago, that was to say, once he gets into office, can we set up that call? It hasn't, to my knowledge, has not occurred yet.
Any other conversations between General Flynn and Russian members of the government?
Not that I'm aware of. And when I say that, what I'm saying is, during the transition, I asked General Flynn that whether or not there were any other conversations beyond the ambassador, and he said no.
And then one more follow-up on Julie's question from earlier
Okay.
on a statement that the President made on Saturday. Can you, and I just want to clarify your answer here,
Yeah.
can you unequivocally state that this administration will not send more troops into Iraq to, as the President has put it, take the oil?
I'm not going to talk about what we may or may not do. I think the President's been very clear that he doesn't telegraph forward what taking options off the table. That's not a good negotiating skill. That's not how he works. There's a reason he's been successful at negotiating, is because he does it in a way that doesn't telegraph to people what he's going to take on or off the table. Jeff Mason.
Where's the President's thinking now on the Supreme Court? Is he closer to naming some nominees? And in a follow-up,
We get 2?
A nominee.
Well, I was gonna,
narrowing down his
make sure.
nominees, I should have said.
Okay.
And at the end of the Obama administration, the number of prisoners in Guantanamo Bay was reduced to about 40.
Right.
What are the President's plans for that prison?
So on the first, I think that in the next week or so, we should have an update on a nominee for the Supreme Court.
A nomination?
It does. I think we'll have a nomination within the next couple weeks. He continues to make that a priority of his. On Gitmo, I think you're going to see further action. I don't want to get ahead of the President, but this is something that has been discussed, and it is in his current decision-making process, how he wants to handle that.
And just follow
Yeah.
up the CIA issue, if I could just last one more. You said that the President disagreed with the characterization of a rift with the intelligence community.
That's right.
Do you dispute, though, his tweet about comparing the intelligence community to Nazi Germany?
No, I think what he was talking about was the process, not the people, and that's a very different thing. Shane.
3 months ago, then candidate Trump was in Gettysburg, and he made a whole list of day one promises. He called it a contract with the American voters. A bunch of them are not going to get done today, because you said he's done with making executive orders, labeling China a currency manipulator, imposing congressional term limits, or proposing that. I want to ask you, why not pursue all those on day one, as he promised in a contract with the voters?
Well, I think we're going to continue to sequence those out. I think part of it is to make sure that we don't spend our entire day signing executive orders and bringing you in. There's a way that we can do this to make sure that we're getting all of those things that he promised the American people done in short haste, and doing it in a way that doesn't just jam them out in a fire hose. And I think part of this is ensuring that we sequence these, that gives the American people the proper attention that they deserve. Because part of it is that if we put them all out on one day, they get lost in the ether, I think. And I think he made these promises and pledges to the American people because they're important to him.
He still plans to do everything on that day one list, though?
That's his intention, yeah. He's very clear about that. Yes, sir.
Is the President going to shake up the leadership of CFPB before the director's term is up?
I'm not going to. No decision has been made at this time on that. Kristen Welker.
Thank you very much, Sean. One on Obamacare. Has he finished his plan on Obamacare? When will the American people see that? And then on NAFTA, can you just clarify? I know he's going to meet with the leaders of Mexico and Canada. Has he started to have discussions with them currently about renegotiating NAFTA?
Yeah, on Obamacare, I think he's going to continue the discussion tonight with Speaker Ryan in particular at the meeting that he's going to have after the reception. When it comes to the other part was NAFTA. He discussed on the phone with both leaders his desire to reform it, but obviously his goal was to have that discussion when they come in person. And I think I mentioned yesterday the foreign minister of Mexico is going to come on the 25th, 26th to sort of set the table and have some of those meetings ahead of President Peña Nieta's meeting here.
Now that he's officially in office, don't they deserve?
Well, again, this is his first working day. I think it's been pretty busy and robust, not just today, but in the 2.5 other days that we had. And I think you're going to see a lot more come out. But there's a lot of things that have to get done, and a lot of things that we're working on as a staff to get him prepared. He's going to continue to have very, very robust weeks. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. This was a good first one. Huh?
One more, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
President who made a history coming from the business community. My question is, last 2 days I have gone to a number of balls, Asian balls, including Asian American and Indian American balls, and most of those people were supporting President for his actions and also trade. But most important, across the street from U.S.-India Business Council, Mukesh Aghi, he represents 500 Fortune companies to and from India. And he said that his companies are supporting. So my question is that where do we go as far as U.S.-India and U.S.-India business relations are concerned?
Well, thank you for the question. I think that whether it's India or other countries throughout the globe today, as I mentioned, I mean, the goal is to figure out countries and markets that we want to access that benefit the American worker, help us grow manufacturing, the services industry, and so that's one area that we'll continue to work with the Prime Minister there on. But we've got a very robust agenda. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure. God bless. See you tomorrow.
Will it be this long?